So recently, I played through the entire Devil May Cry series for the first time ever, all in 1 week, as normal people do. And I'm a big fan of like the retrospective and review type videos, so I figured this would be a great time for me to try doing one of those. So yeah, that's we're gonna do that. Welcome to Devil May Cry, the retrospective slash review thing. Going good so far. Devil May Cry is a long-running action franchise that is often credited for introducing the hack and slash genre, opening the doors for games like God of War and Bayonetta. I've always been aware of the franchise, and I think most people have at least heard of Dante, the lead of the series, but I had never actually played the games for myself. Luckily for me, the whole franchise was on sale a while back, so I bought them and binged them all in a single week, as one does. In this video, I'm going to cover the first 3 games in the series, and if people like this kind of video enough, I'll talk about the next 3 in another video. If you do like this and want to see more of this kind of video, then please let me know down in the comments. This is very much an experiment for me, so it'd be great to know. Just an FYI, I did play all of these on the PS5, and the first 3 games, they're all part of the HD collection, and that's the version I played, just so we're all on the same page. Alright, let's start with the OG Devil May Cry, the first one. This is the game that laid the foundation for the whole franchise and even the genre inspired. A lot of the classic elements of hack and slash games can be found right here for the first time, and it's a really good game. Devil May Cry actually started its life as a concept for Resident Evil 4, when that game was in early development. But at the time, Capcom decided that the more action-oriented gameplay didn't fit well with the series. This is the same company that would later make Resident Evil 6, but let's just ignore that. Despite rejecting it as a Resi game, Capcom still really liked the concept, and decided to make it its own game with its own world and story. Thus, Devil May Cry was born, and it was glorious. I really liked the first game, which honestly kind of surprised me just because of how old the game was. That's nothing against old games. I just mostly grew up with the PS3, so old games and more so old controls can be weird compared to modern games. Luckily, that's not really an issue with DMC. The controls are a bit aged, and they get way better the further into the series we go, but I still didn't really struggle with any of the controls at all. They have a timeless feeling to them. In most regards, it plays like a modern action game. Except for the swimming controls, those are horrible and definitely show their age. Also, the platforming is a little annoying just because they aren't very precise, and the angles can be very weird. The camera is in a fixed position like old school Resident Evil games. The combat is great and the controls are really responsive, which is good because the game is definitely challenging. Not as difficult as like Dark Souls or whatever, but still. I'm not necessarily like the best at games. I normally play through normal on my first time through any game. I like a good challenge, but I'm not going to put several hours into one part of a game. You know, if it starts frustrating me and I stop having fun, I'm not going to keep playing it. Luckily for me, Devil May Cry doesn't fit that. It's kind of the perfect mix for me. It's challenging and fun, but never frustrating. The combat is going to be a big selling point for a game like this. It is an action game after all. And Devil May Cry delivers on this front. It's just fun. DMC has this style system that encourages you to keep things interesting by switching up weapons and attacks on top of maintaining a combo. How well you do at this even affects the final grade of each mission. That's right, you get graded. Dante also has 2 pistols named Ebony and Ivory that you can use in combat to help keep your combat going. They don't do as much damage as your swords and whatnot, but they add a lot of variety to beating up demons. Plus, they make you look cool, so that's a bonus. You can upgrade your weapons and buy items to help you throughout the game by using red orbs, which are either attained by killing enemies or by finding them in the environment. But each time you buy an item, the cost to buy it again goes up, so you kinda have to be careful how often you do so. The combat is pretty easy to get started with and really satisfying when you get good at it. You really feel like a badass when you can get your stylish meter up to the S, which stands for stylish. Shocker, I know. I also can't forget the Devil Trigger mechanic, which is just your standard powered up state you activate by filling a bar and only lasts a certain amount of time. It also heals you a bit, which can be a lifesaver sometimes because, like I said earlier, this game can be a bit hard. There are also unlockable weapons in this game, but not like a lot. My favorite was Ifrit, because there's something really satisfying about beating up demons with your own 2 hands. The enemy designs are really cool too. I love the puppet demons that make up the majority of the enemies, but all around the enemies look great. Devil May Cry is fun to play for the most part. A little dated, but honestly I love it. And that's not where the high points for the game end either. Its story and setting are pretty great too. The plot isn't anything mind blowing or whatever, but it does set the tone for the series and introduces you to the world of Devil May Cry. So let's get into it. Dante is a half demon, half human demon hunter who is the son of Sparta, a very famous demon that actually saved mankind from demons by locking them away in the underworld. Dante has inherited Sparta's power and legacy, and he knows it. I really like Dante as a character. He's a badass with a heart of gold, and oh boy is he cocky. To me, Dante sets the standard for this archetype of action hero. I just love him. He's great. Anywho, Sparta defeated the demon king Mundus and sealed the entrance to the underworld. So he's a pretty big deal. Unfortunately, that makes his family a target, and when he was just a wee lad, Dante's house was attacked by Mundus's forces, and his mother and brother were killed. Cuts to the beginning of DMC, and we find a demon woman named Trish showing up at Dante's business, named Devil May Cry, and informs him that Mundus is trying to escape hell and wreak havoc on mankind. After stabbing him in the chest to make sure he's legit, very standard in the demon hunting business, I assume, she tells Dante that Mundus has a castle on Mallet Island, so she leads him there and then immediately ditches him. Thus, your adventure begins. Mallet Island and its castle are where you can really see the Resident Evil roots of this game. The castle is creepy, and most of the game involves puzzle solving and key finding that's very reminiscent of Resident Evil games, especially the first one. Another big difference, besides combat, is that the game is broken up into missions that vary in length. Some are really short, some are longer, but they each have their own objectives. You also have secret missions that let you unlock permanent upgrades by completing some kind of challenge. They're also pretty well hidden. I barely found any. But I am an idiot, so that could be why. Despite the mission format, you still spend most of the game exploring a castle and learning its secrets, and doing all kinds of convoluted puzzle solving to make your way to the main objective, Mundus. Throughout the game, you also encounter plenty of bosses, and they're all pretty sweet. The boss fights of the game can all be intense and interesting, and they all play pretty differently. I am going to be covering the story of the DMC games in this video, so just be warned about spoilers and whatever. After making your way through the castle, you end up beating a boss named Nilo Angelo, who is actually Dante's brother Virgil, who was corrupted by Mundus. Eventually, you make it to the underworld and you end up facing a gross blob named Nightmare. You also run into Trish, who, surprise surprise, betrays Dante. Her dumbass then immediately almost dies, only to be saved by Dante, because he's just a good guy like that. He claims he only saved her because she looks like his mother, but come on now, Dante, we know that's not true. Dante successfully makes his way to Mundus, who is pissed at Trish for sucking at her one job. It's then Trish's turn to save him, and she quote-unquote dies. Dante gets all pissed off, and he and Mundus tussle. It's not the most interesting boss fight in history, but it serves its purpose. Even though there is this weird flying/shooting phase at the beginning of the boss fight that feels a bit random, it's just kind of out of place. Mundus gets his demon ass kicked, and Dante returns to the quote-unquote dying Trish with the single greatest moment in video game history.
I should have saved you. I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
It's honestly beautiful. Now, quick! Escape the castle. No, wait, Mundus isn't dead? This isn't even his final form. Oh, hey, look, it's Trish. No one could have seen that coming. Trish uses some vague magic and powers up Dante's guns, allowing him to finally finish the job, while saying his classic catchphrase.
Jackpot.
Trish gives a tearful apology to Dante, for the whole trying to kill him thing, and he tells her this makes her human because devils never cry. Get used to that phrase in these games. Cut back to Dante's demon hunting business, which Trish now works at alongside the main man himself. The pair have renamed it Devils Never Cry, which is objectively a much worse name. I see what you were going for there, Dante, but just no. So yeah, that's the first Devil May Cry game. It definitely shows its age in some regards. For some reason, the audio mixing in cutscenes is just way off and super unbalanced. Sometimes you can't even really hear the dialogue being spoke over the music. It's bizarre. Just turn captions on. Make sure you turn captions on. Regardless, it's still a really fun game, and I definitely recommend it. In most ways, it still feels like a modern action game, despite being released in 2001. So yeah, it's held up really well. The series has launched, and it has a bright future ahead of it. Let's move on to Devil May Cry 2, and I'm gonna be straightforward about my feelings for this game. This one fucking sucks. I um I did not enjoy my time playing Devil May Cry 2. Not even a little. So much so that despite the game having two different campaigns, one being a whole new playable character, I didn't do them both. I wasn't gonna put myself through that. Let's just get into it, I guess. DMC2 isn't all bad, so let's start with the good. What little there is. It looks better for one, and it introduces extra evasive moves that you can use to dodge enemy attacks a little easier. Trish is playable this time around if you beat the game on hard mode, so that's pretty cool. I never played as her because I wasn't about to play through the game again. But still, pretty cool. And yeah, no, that's about where my praise for this game ends. I think the worst crime this game commits can be summed up in one word. It's really boring. The difficulty has been toned way down for some reason. I can't even tell you how many times I died in DMC1. Again, the game isn't Dark Souls hard or anything, but some of the bosses and missions took me several tries. Guess how many times I died in Devil May Cry 2? Go ahead. Yes. None. I didn't die. Okay, well, technically I died once, but I had a gold orb, so I was immediately revived. So it didn't matter. So, and I still played this one on normal difficulty, just to give you an idea of like how much easier this game was. The combat isn't drastically different by any means, but the challenge isn't there, so it feels way less validating. Being good at this game is meaningless because it's just so damn easy. I literally beat one of the bosses by just shooting him while he rampaged in the corner. Even the non-boss enemies suck. This thing is like a demon tank, and that's a decent concept, I guess. But look at this. The game is trying to go bigger and better in terms of gameplay, scope, and story. Well, actually, scratch that last one. This game retreads a lot of the same ground as the first game, but I'll get to that. I will get to that in a second. The settings of this game are a lot less interesting, and they are very, I don't know if the word is barren, I guess. They're technically bigger than the first game, but they're almost too big. They feel empty and just aren't much to look at. The setting of the first game may have been limited to the castle and its surrounding island. Somehow that still feels more diverse than what we get in this game. This all goes back to what I said about this game just being really boring. Bland locations and bland enemies are a big part of that. And the story doesn't do it any favors. A lot of it is just kind of a blatant retread of the first game. It starts with Dante, whose entire personality is basically gone this time around for some reason, meeting a woman named Lucia, who gives him the mission of taking down a big bad demon that Sparta once beat a long time ago. And also, spoiler alert, she was made by said bad guy, and Dante has to travel to the underworld to kill a demon. Sound familiar? The first form of the final boss is a neat idea, being this weird conglomerate of all the bosses from the game and even some from the first, but just like with the rest of the game, it isn't a challenge and it isn't fun to fight. It also ends on a weak cliffhanger about whether or not Dante is trapped in the underworld, but who cares, he isn't. Oh, and this whole scene basically plays out exactly the same as the first game.
I'm happy if I can die like a human.
No. Trish. Devils never cry.
But
These tears. Let's leave it to fate. Tears are a gift only humans have. Heads, I go. Tails, you go.
we're too late.
See you around.
I mean, I'm probably not doing the full story justice, but I really don't care. So much of the rest of the game is lackluster that having a weak story just makes me care so little for everything else. I don't even hold it against the game. It was very obvious that they tried to do the first game again, but bigger and better, and they failed. It's just very disappointing. I mean, they literally didn't even tell the director of the first DMC game that they were making a sequel until the first game was localized for the US. They didn't ask him to come back or be involved in any capacity, which is kind of a dick move. I don't think Devil May Cry 2 is the worst game ever. It just suffers from being a sequel to a game that literally invented a whole genre and set a really high standard. And also, the game's just not very good. The first game isn't perfect, but it's a ton of fun. This game just isn't. Okay, so I might have gone on a bit of a rant there. I really don't have a lot to say about DMC 2. Even the rest of the games in the series don't really acknowledge Devil May Cry 2. So let's be like them and just move on. Good news, everyone. The series is good again. And not just good, but great. Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening is a true return to form that does what DMC 2 tried to do. It takes everything that was great about the first game and knocks it up a notch in a way that actually works this time. Dante is back, and this time he isn't wearing a shirt. And he actually has personality again. In fact, he's cockier than ever. That's partly because this one is actually a prequel to the first game. That's right, we're doing story first this time. So spoiler alert. Probably should have led the video with that, but whatever. It takes place about 10 years before Devil May Cry 1 and opens with Dante trying to figure out a name for his demon hunting business. As long as he avoids Devils Never Cry, it'll be fine. While at his shop, some weird looking dude named Arkham shows up, mentioned Dante's brother Virgil, then Dante is attacked by a whole bunch of demons in what is one of the coolest opening to a game ever. Naturally, shirtless Dante beats the demons into a bloody pulp and exits the shop. Seriously, this whole sequence is just so cool. It's amazing. Look at this. So good. All of a sudden, a big-ass tower rises from the ground in the middle of the city, probably killing just thousands of people. And at the top of this massive tower is none other than Dante's twin brother, Virgil. Okay, I'm just going to get this out of the way now. Virgil's backstory has been pretty heavily retconned from the first game. In that one, he's killed by Mundus alongside Dante's mother when Dante is a child. This time around, they both survive the attack, but they kind of veer off in different paths in life. Dante is all about hunting demons and protecting innocent people, and Virgil just wants to be the most powerful thing in existence. So naturally, they butt heads. Anyway, back to the story. Knowing Virgil is at the top of the tower, Dante makes his way to the tower and fights his way to the top. Along the way, you fight a bunch of bosses and solve a bunch of puzzles in the typical DMC format. You also meet a mysterious woman that Dante nicknames Lady. You also fight this weirdo named Jester, who is super bizarre and freaky, and honestly, I love it. We also find out that Arkham works for Virgil in some cutscenes, but that was pretty obvious in the first place. They have some plan to merge the demon world and the human world and gain the power of Sparta and whatever. It doesn't matter. Typical evil stuff. Eventually, Dante makes it to the top, and he and Virgil have an epic duel in the rain, which I am absolutely here for in this game. Virgil actually beats Dante and stabs him with his own sword named Rebellion, which I think we can all agree is a pretty dick move. Virgil steals Dante's amulet because he needs it for evil stuff and leaves Dante to die. Turns out, being stabbed in the chest is a good thing, and Dante awakens to his hidden demon powers. Get it? Awakens? Like the name of the game? Up until this point in the game, you don't have access to the Devil Trigger mechanic from the previous games. And trust me when I say, it was dearly missed. But it's back now, and Dante is ready to kick even more ass. I mean, he's got to deal with that first, but still. He quickly catches up with Virgil, and they have a bit of a scuffle. Their bit of a scuffle is interrupted by Lady and then Arkham. Arkham reveals that he is the Jester and betrays Virgil. He had been manipulating all three of them the whole time to get them all right where he needed them. The gate to the underworld needs the blood of both of Sparta's kids to open. So he manipulates Virgil as Arkham and leads Dante in the right direction as the Jester. He has an evil plan involving the demon world and some crap about Sparta's old sword and whatever, it doesn't matter. Long story short, he wants to be a god using Sparta's power. The tower then transforms and Arkham is carried to the top. Virgil, weakened from his fight with Dante, falls off the tower and Lady follows Arkham up the tower. So now Dante has to fight his way back up the tower again, and along the way he faces off with Lady, who is actually Arkham's daughter named Mary. Arkham killed Mary's mom as part of some weird evil ritual, and naturally Mary was against that. So now she wants some good old-fashioned vengeance. You know, typical family drama. The two fight for a bit before Lady gives up and leaves it to Dante to solve, giving him her rocket launcher to help him finish the job. Dante faces off against Arkham in the demon world, and eventually Virgil joins in. This sequence is so good. The brothers team up against the transformed demon monster Arkham has become, and they beat him into submission with the power of love and brotherhood. Arkham falls back through the portal, where Lady gets the honor of finishing him off. She renounces the name Mary and officially dubs herself Lady. Then Dante and Virgil immediately go back to fighting each other after working so well together. Virgil wants the same power Arkham had to power himself up, and Dante is firmly against that since Virgil is kind of an ass. Thus begins one of the best boss fights I've ever experienced. It's an epic face-off between two powerful half-demons with an extra dash of tragedy. Two brothers torn apart by fate and the death of their mother that changed their lives forever. I love this fight. Virgil is no pushover, so it's incredibly satisfying to beat him. Obviously, Dante wins, and Virgil decides to stay in the underworld, the realm of their father, leading directly to his appearance in the first game. Returning to the real world, Dante sheds some tears for his lost brother, and we once again get the Devils Never Cry line, while also getting the Devil May Cry line, which, is what he names his business. And it's actually kind of cool to see where the name comes from, and has a pretty solid origin. The credits roll as Dante and Lady body some punk-ass demons, and there you go, end of the game. The reason I wanted to get into the story of this game as much as I did is A, because it's awesome and I love it, and B, because this is the first time, in my opinion, the Devil May Cry games have had like a really solid story. The story of the first game isn't bad or anything, it's just fairly bare bones. There's not a lot there. A couple of cutscenes in the beginning and the end, and in between, just not that much. Devil May Cry 2 is basically the same story again. So it's really nice to see the series embrace this kind of more traditional storytelling. Nothing in this game really feels like filler, Every set piece and story beat makes sense and connects. It has a purpose. And this is something the series would continue with in the future, which I will get to in another video, if this one does well. This, honestly, is the game that truly made me fall in love with Devil May Cry, and the world it exists in, and the characters. In a lot of ways, it is like a pretty, generic action, whatever, but it's like the best kind of generic action you could ask for. It's fantastic. Alrighty, with the story talk out of the way, let's talk about all the other things that make this game so damn good. Starting with the gameplay. The combat is pretty similar to the first two games, a lot of sword and gunplay. Mix things up to keep your combo growing. The grading system returns, but now goes up to SSS. The story is still broken up into missions, and you are scored at the end of each mission based on how well you played. You kill enemies and find hidden red orbs in order to level up Dante and his weapons, along with buying any items you need. It's all pretty standard DMC at this point, with one big addition. Dante now has 4, technically 6 different combat styles that you can pick from, which encourage different kind of gameplay styles and techniques. You have Trickster, which is all about evasion and maneuvering, and was my personal favorite. There's Swordmaster, which adds some extra combat moves. Gunslinger, which, you guessed it, is all about gunplay. And Royal Guard, which is all about countering enemy attacks. 2 other styles are unlocked later in the game, one that slows down enemies, and one that creates a Shadow Dante to fight alongside you. This style system adds a lot to the gameplay of this game. Each style levels up separate from the others, and the more you level up, the more different abilities you unlock for that style. For example, the Trickster style gives you the ability to do a short little dash to dodge enemies, so if you level it up, you can dash more times back to back. I honestly picked my favorite and kind of just stuck with it through the whole majority of the game. But you can switch styles at the start of every mission, at every checkpoint, which is these god statues. Honestly, I love the style mechanic. It adds so much variability and customization to how you play the game. There's even further customization in the fact that you get to pick which weapons Dante has equipped, and you can switch between them during combat. Dante can have 2 melee weapons and 2 guns equipped at any time. And believe me when I say there are a lot of good options. Throughout the story, you face all kinds of bosses that, once beaten, become a weapon for you to unlock. This, coupled with the styles, makes this the most customizable DMC game to date. You really get to pick how you want to play and what weapons you want to use. There are all kinds of combinations to try and play around with. Finding a set you're really good at is very gratifying. It all fits perfectly within the combat that's been established, but also helps keep it fresh, which is really good for the series. This game really has a lot going for it. The The story and gameplay are better than ever, and there's a bunch of other features as well. For one, Virgil is playable in the special edition of the game, so that's pretty awesome. You can play through the whole story as him. You also get to see some extra cutscenes by doing this. There's the Bloody Palace mode, which is actually carried over from DMC2 and is basically a staple of the series at this point. Bloody Palace is a survival mode where you fight round after round of enemies for as long as you can. There's also a turbo mode, which speeds up the gameplay by 20%, and a gold mode, which actually makes the game easier by allowing you to continue from where you are, adding some accessibility to this fantastic game. This game is so good. It's not necessarily my favorite in the series, we'll get to that one in the next video, but it definitely sets a high bar for the future of the franchise. A franchise that I love, despite DMC2's attempt to make me not like it. Honestly, if you want to get into these games, you can skip DMC2 entirely. It's not worth it. This series is like if you took the over-the-top action from Resident Evil, cranked it up to 11, gave it a gothic makeover, and then made an entire franchise off of that. That's what these are, and honestly, if that's not enough to get you interested into playing this, then it's not meant for you. And you know what, on that note, I think I'm going to end the video here. There are 3 more mainline games in the DMC series. Yes, I am counting the edgy reboots. So I'll save those for next time. If you like this format and style of video, please let me know in the comments down below. I haven't done anything like this before, so I'll be really interested to see how it turns out and what people think. If this would be a good series to keep going with, this kind of video here on Tin and Maxx. If you're not already subscribed, please do that. Like it if you liked it, comment, let me know what you think of these games if you played them. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys whenever I do next.